Good evening, everybody out there in Zoom land. This is Kathy L. Murphy, and tonight I am Mother Superior, and I'm here with my darling friend Ruthie Landis, who is playing one of the wonderful roles of one of the many nuns that went to this farm in Arizona to because they had this dream that they were going to build a chapel. And
Yeah. This is my outdoor working outfit. You are the Mother Superior. You don't have to wear this, but to the cows, yeah, this is what I have to wear.
That's right, because we're watching the 1963 classic iconic film, Lilies of the Field, which starred one of my favorite actors of all time, Sidney Poitier. Anything he touched was gold. And he recently passed away. So I went on a Sidney Poitier movie binge. And of course, my favorite film of all time of his was the one that starred Lulu. And
To Sir with Love.
To Sir with Love. I always wanted to be a teacher because of him, but that didn't last long. But anyway,
Patch of Blue, you know what?
Patch of Blue, Guest Who's Coming to Dinner. I mean, The Heat of the Night. I mean, every film, literally, he was the consummate actor and assumed a role that really, to me, was like one of the first persons in the United States to make people understand that a man of color was not necessarily somebody to be afraid of or somebody to be admired. And I remember even as a little kid, I knew this guy was important. I understood it. And I came from a community of all white. In Kansas, we didn't have anybody of color. We had one family that was Mexican, Native American, Indian mix. And, but we just didn't see that. And it wasn't until I went to college that I had any interaction with international cultures and people of color. But I've always been a big reader. So it made me have empathy and understanding for all different people. So back to the film. This film was based upon, Lovelace Cook is here. Yes.
Oh, hello.
I'm so happy. Lovelace.
Yay.
Bless you, my child. Bless you. I'm here with one of my nuns, and we are here tonight celebrating Lilies of the Field. We are so excited that you are joining us. So God bless you, my child. God bless you.
Yeah.
And I will pray for you for coming tonight. So, and I have the blessed, Mother of Christ behind me, Madonna, that is watching over us. But we are discussing the movie, the Sidney Poitier movie, Lilies of the Field, which, have you seen it, Lovelace?
No, I've been up to my ears in years. I can't wait.
You're
okay.
In well, it's a treat.
It's such a, I couldn't believe you put that on the list, Kathy, because it was made in 1963, right before Martin Luther King's, real, march and the whole movement really began. And, I thought, oh, this is going to be really interesting. And, Sidney Poitier was the only, the first, he was only 36 when he made this. And he was the first African-American leading man actor to be even nominated and then win an Academy Award at that time prior to the movement. And what I think was so very powerful is how relevant it still is, and sad that all these years later it is so relevant. It's unbelievably relevant.
It's so true. It's so true. And I was telling her just before you came on, Lovelace, that Sidney Poitier died recently, and all these tributes and people speaking out about how important his movies were for all of us. It made me want to go back and watch them. So I had seen we did it in our book and film club because it's one of my favorite films. So I decided that, oh my gosh, I haven't seen Lilies of the Field since I was a child. And it had such a it left such an impression on me about people so different from each other. I mean, because the difference between Sidney Poitier, who was this handyman, traveling handyman, and these nuns who were originally from Germany, who made this incredible journey to come to the United States and they wanted to build this chapel. It was profound. And when I watched it, I have to tell you, I immediately did a post because it brought back all that is good in humanity to me, and what I think we've all kind of in a bit forgotten, because we are getting hit by every negative thing you can hear in the world, from politics to religion to just about everything. And to watch a film that was as sweet as this film was life affirming. And
but it was, yeah, but may I just say it was, and it wasn't seen through rose-colored glasses.
No, not at all.
So here comes this guy, right? And he's living out of his car.
A station wagon.
But he's well-spoken, as
Yes.
he always was. Clean, beautiful, well-spoken man, very smart, right? And he's trying to emancipate himself, is what I felt. He's in the car and he's driving and he's free. And then he comes upon this nun
farm
conclave of whatever it was in their little, they didn't have even a vegetable garden yet, and he comes upon them. And think of this, so he's a Black man in a really white area, except for the Hispanic people, and then that comes in too, and he arrives here, and the backdrop of Nazi Germany is just what 10 15 years behind this,
right.
And it's even brought up. I mean, he calls the mother superior Hitler, and then she calls him Hitler, and then one of the man in the town who he can get work from so that he can help build this chapel keeps calling him boy, and then he stood up and he called him boy. Do you remember that moment?
That was a very telling moment, but what I loved about it, without being preachy, the man learned a big lesson from this Homer. What was his last name? Homer
Schmidt, but it was Smith, was Homer Smith, but she called him Schmidt.
But Homer was one of these people. He was a hard worker and he loved his freedom. And so it was really hard for him, but he saw these women, and he didn't know they were nuns at first because they were dressed like you. They were out in the fields working.
Yes, this is a work outfit, right?
And then when he goes to dinner and they're all in the habits, he just kind of jumped. But he ends up teaching them English. He ends up teaching them a lot of things. And
he teaches them his Baptist ways, and they sing amen, and the mother superior is like going, oh my God, what's happening? But the nuns, they sang with such joy and glee, and they set aside everybody sort of had to set aside their prejudices,
preconceived notions.
Right. And then to follow it, so I think there were two other really huge points for me, and I wanted to know what you thought about this. But you wonder why. Why does he stay? They don't have the money to pay. He wants his freedom. He wants to live his life. He's gorgeous, and he's so really skillful and really could get work anywhere he goes. But why does he stay? And there's this scene, and he's wants clearly to have the mother superior's validation, and she never will. She never will. And then at this one moment, the Mexican people in the area who are Catholic and who come to the services come to help, and he doesn't want them to help. And it was a kind of moment, I thought, where he was kind of racist toward them a little bit. He was kind of, not in an overt way, but, like in a status way. I'm higher status than you. And he wouldn't do it. And then finally he lets them do it. But there's that scene where he plays it so beautifully, where he says, why are you doing this? Because I wanted to build something in my life. If I had been wealthy, I would have been an architect. I would have gone to school and learned to build great buildings. And all I wanted was to be able to say, I built this. Why are you interfering? And of course she was, because you're not building it, God is building it.
Exactly. And that's what he realized when he finally came to the realization. He couldn't walk away from his Baptist upbringing. He couldn't walk away. He had a guilty conscience. He even leaves once, but he comes back because he even believes, because of them, that this is what God wants him to do. And then that's when he lets in the scene between the Mexican workers and him.
Oh, fabulous.
Priceless. Wait till you watch it, Lovelace. It's one of these films, but I'm going to go back a little bit further. When I first watched this film, I was in shock because in 1963, he's driving an old station wagon that overheats. But what is amazing, he's driving through Arizona on a major highway. It's gravel, dirt road. It's not,
highway.
It's not a highway. And he's going so fast. That's what I kept thinking. Why is he driving with the pedal to the metal on these dirt gravel roads when, the rocks spring up and break your windshield? He's just hauling, what? And it kind of caught me because when I was a kid, I never caught that because all our roads were dirt and gravel. But it shows you how times have changed. Driving to my grandparents' house every day I went with them was gravel road. And I had not thought about how we have, the scenery has even changed. And that old station wagon, my next door neighbors were Catholic and they had 6 kids, and it was a lovely, wonderful family of neighborhood girls, and they had one son, and they drove a station wagon too. And we used to go to the country club swimming in that station wagon, and we'd pile in, remember the back seat would face backwards. I tell you, I love riding in that. And it just brought back a flood of memories of playing with the Mariani girls and, that station wagon and the way the roads were back then growing up in Kansas. And that was the beginning of the movie. And they're in this hard scrabble place and they have no food and they haven't had enough to really have too many crops. So they're living on literally nothing. And you've got to see what happens, Lovelace, when you watch this film, because they all are transformed by the experience. And they're determined they're going to make this chapel, and they have no money, no resources, no materials. And when you see what happens in this movie, and it's not something that I felt like was impossible and kind of somebody dreamed up this story. I think it came because everybody got affected by it, and then everybody came together as a community, and it has the most unusual ending.
Well, I just want to say what you said about if you talk about it, it's all about the story, so what motivates? Well, the nuns absolutely, they're motivated because they're wanting to have a place that isn't just the back of another van. That's where they would have their Sunday mass, is standing on the dirt road in back of a van. And that there was this traveling priest that would do it. But so it's obviously what their motivation is. But then that idea that for him, he had a strong motivation too. It wasn't theirs, but it was about his self-worth and his value. So, and I just want to say, the guy who calls him boy doesn't call him boy anymore by the end of the movie. And I think that that is also really important. That what they don't have a common mission exactly. They do want to build this thing, but what this thing represents is different for each people. So when the guy who owns the diner, well, what
Oh,
are you
I
coming here?
love the guy who owned the diner.
And he
was
comes and he
precious.
says, I know. And he says, look, I'm an atheist. The other people here aren't, and they all want to have a place to baptize their children and all this stuff. But he said, mine's an insurance policy because I don't know. And if I don't know, remember, he says,
Yes.
if I don't know, it's just carrying
Just
insurance.
in case there is a God, he was precious. And I love the way he worked on the chapel too. But there's so many moments in this film that you really want to watch it when that's your sole attention and you can really focus on everything that is playing. Everything has significance, no matter how small.
And when you were talking about Sidney Poitier, and that is, he was first of all, a very high status presence, right? Always, no matter what he played, he had this bigger, like he just filled the screen, right? And charisma like nobody's business. And he always was extremely articulate in the way he spoke. But what I loved is he would make these unpredictable choices, like he'd be walking and tired, and all of a sudden he'd like leap in the air and kick his heels in the air, or he'd like do almost like a little dance, in the middle of a moment that you would never, it was just so unlikely. It was just such an unlikely moment that I don't think another actor would choose.
Another thing, he was not, he would light up a cigarette and drink. Yeah. And, after he'd get off work, he'd go lay down on a cot and light up a cigarette and drink. And, it was, he was not the perfect man. He was a real man. He was very authentic. And he had he has a way of superiority, not in that he's better than anybody else.
No.
But you know what he reminds me of? You remember Yul Brynner in The King and I? Yul Brynner was like that. He had such a presence that I don't know if it's posture or what, but you just.
Well, I think it's a sense of self.
Yes.
I wish I had that. Well, you do have it. You do have it.
I wish I play parts all the time, but when I watch movies such as this and books such as this, I'm inspired to be a better person. And so I wanted everybody to see it. And that's why I wanted to start our year off with it, because I think it sets the tone for the movies that I'm picking this year. And I've just got another one I'm going to be picking. I'm going to talk about at the end, but I want to pick movies and films that make us remember what it's like to be human, what it's like if we work together as a people. There's a lot of just sadness in the world right now. I got some really sad news right before I started this, and I thought, how am I going to get through this? One of my dear friends just passed away, and he was way younger than me, and I don't know, it just happened. And I was just really upset. And then I thought, well, you know what? That guy was an angel. I mean, he truly was. And you'll hear more about it later on. But there's a lot of sad things happening in the world, and we get caught up in it, and then we get depressed. But I think there's ways that we can, through reading and through watching films, that we can reset, like COVID has done for all of us, reset our mindset on what's important in life. And to me, what's important is, even if we have to do Zoom meetings to all be together, at least we're having a conversation. It's real and it's live and it's authentic. And I make mistakes all the time. I mean, if you were at my girlfriend weekend book club convention, I made some Lulus, but you know, that's just the way I am. I'm not apologizing for it. I do the best I can. But I think Lovelace, when you watch this film, now, have you ever heard anything about this film at all, or what have you seen?
I don't know. There's something in the back of my mind, and I think I may be confusing it with something that took place in Italy, and I can't there because there's some similar threads. I don't remember seeing it. Based on what you're telling me, it makes me cry because what you're talking about is so incredibly important. Oh my goodness.
That's what's wonderful too about this, because every time we have one of these Zoom sessions, I find something that I never would have discovered if we hadn't, like Adriana Trigiani was talking about this book, The Power of the Subconscious. And I ordered the book. I can't wait to get it. She was talking all about it, and she was telling all these things were just like me. And I thought, wow, I never even heard of this book before. So I ordered it, actually ordered a couple more of the guys' books because I want to read them. But that's what happens. We discover one thing, like I discovered Bollywood. Oh, have I got a movie? I've got 2 movies coming up that are going to be in the queue that are Bollywood films, and I'll talk about that at the end, but you'll want to know about them. But anyway, we like to dress up Lovelace for a thing. So whatever our theme is, we try to do something. And I'm really excited about the Bollywood films because thanks to Ruthie and Angie Gattani, I have enough saris for several episodes.
All right.
I can hardly wait to wear them. And I even have tops that she had made for me in Jaipur that go under them. It's just amazing, the kindness of my authors. But we are watching these films, but they're also based on books. Now, I found out when I was researching this that there is a book. It's the movie's called Lilies of the Field, but the book is called The Lilies of the Field, and it's based upon these San Benedictine nuns that were in Boulder, Colorado. And what's amazing is this book came out in 1962, and this movie adaptation came out in 63. Do you realize what an amazing thing that is? That book must have hit the ground running.
It must have, because just think, it was not long after World War II. These were German nuns. And then with the whole 64 and 65, right, were when Martin Luther King, the march and all that stuff. And so it was right before that. So it was like Hollywood was trying to do what you said, which was trying to bring people together through the story. And in that, I want to say, at first when we were watching it, you were afraid, is this going to be sappy? Is it going to be sappy? It wasn't sappy at all.
And it's not dated in any way. I feel like if the same thing happened today, they might be wearing a little bit different clothing and driving a different automobile, but it would probably be the same story. It's timeless. I can't wait to hear your impression after you see it, Lovelace, but it's really good. And later on, I'm going to do one of my other favorite movies. I had a thing about nuns when I was a kid. I wanted to be one, I think because of the Mariani girls. And then my mother said, well, we don't belong to the Catholic Church. I said, well, what can we be like that? She goes, missionaries. Thank God I wasn't a missionary. I just don't, I don't actually have the same mindset as I did as a children about any kind of missionary work. We can't go in and teach them to be like us. We need to help people raise their quality of life. That I have mixed feelings about that now, but I will say, did you ever see The Trouble with Angels with starring Haley Mills? I wanted to be Haley Mills so bad, but she's sent to this boarding school as a precursor to becoming a nun. And at the end of the year, whatever, they decide whether they do become a nun or they go back to regular life. And Haley Mills starred in it, and she still doing great movies. I just watched her in a film the other day. She's pretty incredible. She's not much older than me. I think she's about maybe 70, something like that. She's British and she's wonderful. But The Trouble with Angels, and the Mother Superior in it was Rosalind Russell. And she's another one of my favorite all time. Talk about commanding, no matter what role she takes, where there's Gypsy or whatever film she's in. My favorite of all time is, of course, the story about Auntie Mame, because I kind of feel like Auntie Mame with my new grandson. Oh, my habit is slipping.
We did that last year.
Yeah, we did that one last year. But and I think we did Gypsy too, but we haven't done The Trouble with Angels. But anyway, I'll wait a little bit because I like to kind of pace them out. But
Well, you'll have a better habit by then.
well, I've got one on order and it didn't come in, so I may do. But it's starting, the weight of all this material. It's called, what do they call it? Wardrobe malfunction. Yeah, that's you can, if you really look close, you guys, I got to show you this because this just cracks me up. You can see the sleeves on this jacket are brocaded gold anyway with buttons. But what I want to get back to saying is there's a book, and so I've ordered the book because I like to see the differences between how the book was done and how the film was done. And most of the time I like the book first, but I can't imagine right now how it could be any better than that film. I can't, I'm sure it's abbreviated, an abbreviated version, but it was in Colorado and this is in Arizona. That's a big difference. So I've ordered it, so I'm going to read it, and I may have a few comments later. But I do want to hear from you, Lovelace, on what you think of the film, because it's life-changing. I think it really made me feel wonderful. So any other aspects of the film that you want to address, Ruthie, that your costume is basically at the beginning of the film, all the nuns are in the fields working and they've got on hats tied on and regular like calico dresses,
Yeah, like
then,
work
dress.
dress.
It's only later, and when they go to church, do you see the habits come out? Because I imagine they were really hot in that Arizona sun, and they walked literally miles to get to the highway where the little cantina was, and where all the Hispanic families and Mexican families would come for Catholic service, like she said, out of the back end of a van. And a traveling priest came through, and he was kind of losing his faith. Hope is not his faith, but his hope in anything. And when the first time when he walks into the finished chapel, that is probably the most wonderful moment I've ever seen of anybody entering a church. It's fabulous.
Yeah. So I guess I would like to just talk about one other layer, because I don't think that they, it was about race, certainly. It was about diversity in religion, because he would lead the nuns singing, a Baptist song and getting them all to clap and sing with him. It was about, Germans, immigrants coming to this country, not speaking English right after the war. It was about the relationship between the Mexican people and then the guy that was just the kind of white, big owner of the company. And then how the relationship between the one black man and them, and that they were just so sweet, to him. But I'm going to add another layer.
Okay.
You just said it. You just kind of said it and slipped through it. There was a little bit of feminism in it.
Oh, absolutely.
And what I want to say is, he would say, you guys can't do any of this stuff. And the Mother Superior and all of them no, we could do anything a man can do. When he brought out his tools, they were running over the tools. They wanted to do the tools. And they were the ones who were barefoot, stomping in the mud to create the adobe to put the bricks together. And the Mother Superior was extremely feminist, and is like, oh my God, she was like, totally, there isn't anything we can't do. If you don't want to do it, we'll do it. Just tell us what to do. And I thought, and then the other piece is that they didn't portray these nuns as miserable people. They portrayed them as joyous women who had a camaraderie and laughed and had a good sense of humor and were open-hearted and open-minded and not rigid. Only the Mother Superior was the toughie, but that was another layer to me.
And they were all different ages of women. They weren't just, they were young girls, and then they were mid-age, and then there were older women. They were all, that was interesting too. But at first you didn't recognize that because they were always covered in something, and then it was powerful, really powerful. Yeah, I loved it. So I hope to go and watch. I've watched about 4 now of his movies, and I just will sneak one in every once in a while, but they're really, really good. So that's it. Now, next coming up, we have I've got them up on the website, what movies we're going to do. And Robert couldn't be here because he's working on, all of his book launch. So he'll be back. He'll be jumping back and forth. And Robert Gwaltney is my co-host. And he's created the banners for these. But I want to tell, since Lovelace is here and she does the podcast, Bollywood and Books, I've got to tell you about 2 films that are going in the queue, and they're going to be at different times. I've got to add the last one, but it's called, I don't know if you've seen it, but it's Baghban. Baghban. It means gardener.
Baghban.
And it means gardener. And I think I watched it on Amazon Prime, but you might look on YouTube. It's probably there too. At least you can watch the trailer. But it's about a couple that are, in their midlife to senior year. And he's a banker. He's raised all these boys and put them through college and provided them everything they needed to study abroad. He even adopts a young man from the streets and saves his life and educates him. And so what happens is the next to youngest son comes to me. He was the last one graduating. Goes, I really need a car, Dad. I just need 50,000 rupees. And the dad goes to his banker boss and says, I want to take my 50,000. He goes, that's the end of your retirement. That's all of it. So, he said, I know, but I feel like I provide for my sons, they'll provide for me. That's the beginning of the story. And then he goes to work and they tell him, congratulations, today is your last day. You're in retirement. And he has absolutely nothing saved. And what happens then is the most beautiful and heartbreaking story. I've never seen anybody ever do a film about what happens to a couple who are upper, fairly well-to-do, but then what happens when it's time for the children to step in. It's a must-see movie, and I can't ever pronounce his name, but he's like the king. He came before Shah Rukh Khan. Is Amitabh.
Oh, Amitabh.
Yes.
Amitabh Bachchan.
Yes, he plays the dad, and the woman is somebody I had not seen in a film before, but I'm become a big fan of hers. But it's a must-see film. So that's one, and then I've got coming up. My son-in-law over the holidays had me. He's a big '80s guy. He grew up in the '80s. He loves '80 films. He goes, "Have you ever seen Cool Runnings?" No, and he goes, Have you ever heard of this movie? It's a story about a Jamaican bobsled team that goes to the Olympics. And you know, the Olympics are going on right now. And I'm thinking, oh, this is a joke movie. You all,
It's wonderful.
it's wonderful. It's, in fact, I got done with that movie and I thought, there isn't anything I can't do. If Jamaicans can bobsled at the Olympics and never been in a bobsled before they go, this is the movie. I think it was kind of based upon a semi real life story. But okay, so we've got that coming up. And then I'm trying to think what other one added. There's a couple more, but the one I'm going to add that I just watched, and it stars Rani, and her last name is M.A. She's always been in Shah Rukh Khan films, and I love her, but she plays a young teacher that has Tourette's, and she graduates from college with multiple degrees and honors and can't find a job. And this story about the school she goes to work at with these kids from the slums, it's kind of like an Indian version of To Sir with Love. That's what I compare it to. And I left after watching that filming, first of all, thinking she's one of the most talented young women I've ever seen, because that Tourette's thing, it would be hard. It'd be hard enough to play a lead in a film like this, but then to have to do all the quirks and the clicks and the, I don't know how she did it. It's amazing. And it's Hithki, I think. Hithki. Anyway, it's going to be up on my website soon. So I've got some films that are going to be about as diverse as you've ever seen in your life. And I just watched one on Netflix. It's brand new, starring Dakota Johnson and Mira Sorvino, and it's called Chloe and, oh gosh, it's two girls' names. It's Theo and Chloe. It's a story about an Inuit man from as far north as you can come that receives in a dream that he has to go south to give the world a message, and he goes to New York City, and it's based upon a true story. And I'm telling you, that film was so powerful. And he meets a homeless girl, and the story takes off. Dakota Johnson plays the homeless girl. It's an amazing story. There's some really good movies out there right now. And I know that Ruthie, tell us what you've been watching these movies, and what's it called?
The Screen Actor Guild Award. You know, I was on the nominating committee. Then there's different committees, some for the, TV shows or whatever, but mine was for films. So that only meant that I had to watch like 45 films in 2 months. And it was, what I have to say is there were some really amazing films, but because of COVID, what happened was the films are small budget films, and they're brilliant. Yes. And they're brilliant because they're small, and you don't see that, and then of course there's a few of the big budget ones, but they don't have the intimacy and the deep connection to the story and the characters so I mean, I have a list of films, and sometime when I have a minute, I'll sit down and I'll write these really unusual ones, so during the year you can maybe check some of them out, because I don't think people don't know about them out there.
It's like Moonrise Kingdom, any Wes Anderson film. I just watched French Dispatch, and
wasn't it amazing?
Wes Anderson is probably one of my favorite filmmakers ever, and he comes from Austin, Texas, and I just love everything that he does. And
the cast was like, oh my God, and the stylization, and not a big film, again, a pretty small film. But then there's one called 9 Days, and it's about before people can incarnate into life, and they have to be chosen, and this guy had lived a life and he was the chooser, and he was interviewing them, and could they make it as a human in this earth? Really interesting film. Nightmare Alley. Oh
I
my
saw
God.
that film. I went to the theater with my daughter and saw it, and I'm telling you, that's one you have to see on the big screen, y'all. Oh my God.
I watched it on my computer, but it's okay. I enjoyed it.
It's absolutely chilling.
Phenomenal.
Horror film?
Huh?
Is it a horror film?
No, not at all.
I was scared it was because
I was too. I
Oh.
was too, but look at who was in it.
Okay.
Bradley Cooper, Kate Blanchett, Toni Collette, just phenomenal actors. David Strathairn, and it really is not. It's a film noir. It's a present day film noir. So it's dark, but it's not
dark.
But it is nothing to do.
Okay, I'm scared of horror films.
I can't watch it.
Stephen King and I mean, he's a great writer. I freak out sometimes with things.
Well, we don't watch horror films, do we, Kathy, on this?
We haven't really. I mean,
the old ones with like Bela Lugosi and some of the Frankens. I mean, the older ones I can deal with.
The Mummy and stuff like that. Yeah.
The gore and I don't like it either. That's one genre I don't like. But Nightmare Alley, my daughter and I went to it, and we left there just shaking our heads because it's like nothing I'd ever seen before. Nothing. It's really dark. It's dark, but it's so well acted. It's so full of surprises. So, yeah. But there's a lot of movies out there that I want to see. I mean, Don't Look Up. I mean, that was one that I absolutely was on the edge of my seat on watching on Netflix, and it doesn't have the best ending.
No.
But I can't get it out of my mind,
Well, because it couldn't, because I do feel it was an activist film, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely.
And if it's an activist film, then it can't be happily ever after, because it's about what we're doing to our planet and big business and the way, and so how could they have a happy ending? They had to motivate. I mean, it's interesting to watch these films.
Theo and Chloe is like that too.
Mm-hmm.
He has a dream, and it's not a good one about the world, and so he goes to New York. There's just so many great films, but we want, Lovelace, if you see a film that you just we want people to send me those. I told Ruthie, if there's anything you want to see, let's get them in the mix, because I think it's, I watch a lot of movies. I have to admit, I watch a lot, but I still miss great ones. Mandy has come up with some great movies that I would have never seen, and I just love. And even series, on Netflix. I've been watching a lot of series. The last one that I absolutely just fell in love with was set in Medellin, Colombia, called Queen of Flow. And I've never seen anything like this show before. It was a movie about the reggaeton rap music it's not just Colombia. It's in Miami, it's in Puerto Rico, it's in, it's kind of evolved in all that area where they go back and forth, and I love the music, and it's the first time I've ever liked rap.
There is one I think I threw it out before, and it fits into what you're envisioning, some older films that are showing people working together in the weirdest ways, and it's the movie with Alan Bates called King of Hearts.
I haven't seen it.
Oh, it is.
I don't think I've seen it. Sometimes I forget. I watch it. I've seen this. King of Hearts.
Yeah, King of Hearts.
Okay.
And it's the backdrop of the war behind it. And I'll just say, he lands in a town where it's been evicted except for the insane asylum.
Yes. Oh, it's a fabulous film.
Isn't it? Oh my God,
Ooh,
Lovelace. I've watched that movie
It's
4
so
or 5 times.
touches
I've
you so
got
much.
to watch it. It's like that kind of reminds me of that film about the men who came back from war. And William Powell, wasn't he the dad? And he comes back from war and he looks fine, but he's not fine. And he has a difficult time readjusting into his old lifestyle. And then there's a young man in it who lost his, I think, his lower hand and arm. And he gave the most powerful performance I've ever seen in a film about coming back. And he was engaged when he left, and he comes back and he's embarrassed because he thinks, how can I? It's just, what is the name of that film? I'll think of it. But it's,
But King of Hearts is actually about that maybe the crazy people aren't the crazy people.
that reminds me of Carolyn Haynes telling the story at our book club convention where she loved James Lee Burke, and she wanted to go to Louisiana when she was a young girl and experience it, learn how to Cajun dance. And she stayed at this fabulous bed and breakfast. She goes, oh, well, you need to go to Marat's in New Orleans. So they went there, and she said, and then you need to go down to Bow Bridge and go to this club. They dance like, and she said her and her girlfriend went, they were young. And they said they got there, and these men at this one table asked them to dance every dance. And she goes, there was nothing other than we were just dancing and learning how to do it. We had the time of our lives. But my friend and I, driving back to the bed and breakfast, said, well, did you notice that none of the men had any teeth? And none of them had any teeth, but they danced with them all night long, and they were all different ages. And anyway, they get back to the hotel, and the next morning breakfast, they were telling the woman about it. She goes, oh my God. She goes, well, you know who those men were? She goes, every Saturday night, they let all the men from the middle institution go down there dancing. And they did. They had the time of their lives.
That's kind of like what King of Hearts.
Even crazier about that story is I was telling some friends, and they said, oh my God, a bunch of girls from Jefferson went down there to learn how to dance, and they danced with those same guys. And this is like 25 years later. I go, oh my gosh, but wonder why they didn't have any teeth. It was very interesting. But, you know, and back to Lilies in the Field, even though this is a powerful film, there are moments of humor in the film. And, you know, they just kind of add to the,
well, the relationship between the Mother Superior and him is often very funny.
yeah.
Such a great contrast. I mean, those two, that pair, what a great combo of energies. You know, I can just, and then the development of character throughout.
Well, I hope we didn't give too much away to all our listeners.
No, you didn't. It's I'm really interested in evolution of character over time because of whatever is going on. And it sounds
well, you know, Kathy, let's be honest, it's not a murder mystery.
No, it's not.
So we really didn't give away too much of I mean, if you read the synopsis on you know, Rotten Tomatoes or whatever, we didn't say anything that they don't say.
Listen, all you've done is make me want to see something that is uplifting.
Oh, I'm telling you, you will be so inspired. You'll go back to Bollywood and books. You'll go, I'm going to do this. In fact, what's coming up with Bollywood and books?
Well, where's my book? Oh, hang on one second. I'll show you.
I will hang on one second, because there's nothing I love more than
I have been it's been languishing.
Oh, well,
it's been languishing because Judith Titleman and I are in cahoots. We are can you say
Yes,
House for Dementia. Just finished reading it, and we have been looking up some stuff about Judith, but we're gonna have a get acquainted call next week, and then the interview is our conversation is going to be the next week. And I have Alka Joshi, the henna artist, and
I really want to read that. Yeah.
they're great books. The henna artist I thought was a little better than the second, but she maintains tension throughout with the main character. I mean, just the way that her story is developed and the tension from, moment to moment. It was like, I gotta read this. I wrote it.
And her story, right, is I just wrote a little impressions about it. The first chapter is in our wonderful, give it a plug, anthology, work in progress. Yes.
Yes.
And she's one of our book club selections this year.
This book is you were talking about Germany, and and I felt like she's written about a time and place, but it is so absolutely current. I mean, just the whole, I don't know, she captured things in a way, and I know it took her 18 years to write this. There's a profound, I'm going to have to ask her about it, but Ganesha is kind of a protector of Esther, who's Jewish, who has to hide her identity and pass as a Christian through the war, essentially. I mean, and the fact that it was based on that Judith never understood why her grandmother was such a bitter person. And she was left, at the altar by and so and once her grandmother died and Judith heard, she wanted to honor her grandmother in a way, and also tie in her love of Eastern religion, or Eastern philosophy.
She's
so
fascinating.
She really is, and she just seems so demure, and we've just been having a little email conversation back and forth, and it's been funny. I was at the vet with two of the cats, and I said, I'll finish this email when I get home, but I've got two miserable cats. And, I got home and wrote right at the very end, said, well, they're home. They've forgiven me. Everybody's right as rain. And she said, oh, a little short fiction. That was
all these connections, all these connections that we're making. And every time we make a connection, then another connection is being made. And just like Jim Garrison today is now following your lead and now going, and he's too is reviewing the stories of, and I said, it just makes my heart sing to see authors paying it forward in such a way. And, and just like, I love everything that Lovelace is doing, and she's been a Pulpwood queen. We've known each other for
a
long time. We didn't meet though until about 4 or 5 years ago.
When was Mandy was here? 2 years ago. I think you came 3 years ago.
Yeah, maybe it's just 3.
Right after Tawana. Right then. It was just so I've lost track.
She lives in Fairhope, Alabama. So I was down there with Joe Formicella and Suzanne Hudson. How are they doing? Good.
Joe is doing better, I think, after he basically died. His heart stopped.
Yep.
And Suzanne and Sonny got it started again and got him, but when he fell, he broke the L4 and L5 vertebra. He landed.
Oh my God.
So he's got, I haven't seen them. They've been
seen pictures that he's lost a lot of weight, but I think he's doing much better.
I think they're doing well. It's just with I don't know if I got sick right before the Saturday right before the conference.
Oh, and
I was sick on Tuesday, and I thought, you know what? I saw Dionne Warwick with a bad tooth give a performance, and by gosh, I can get dressed for this, and I can suit up and show up, and nobody will be the wiser.
You will be surprised, but there were people at our event that had COVID. So, the show must go on. It's amazing to me. I didn't get sick after Girlfriend Weekend like I normally do. I'm down for weeks, but I was fine until my grandson came and stayed with me for a long weekend, and he had a cold when he came, and I got it. And so I'm just now over it. and that was back some time ago, but I'm staying in, y'all. I've got my doctor's orders is, stay
No,
close to home.
Kathy, you showed me, and this is, I'm sorry, I'm digressing,
No,
Ruthie.
no.
You showed me the book, I think it was called Bollywood Kitchen.
Yes, that's my
recipes
favorite.
and movies. Well, he is a producer who is going to produce Alka Joshi's book, The Henna Artist, for Netflix.
Are you kidding me?
No, and I think he has Priyanka Chopra as the lead. I cannot remember, but I'm gonna try to figure out how to get in touch with him, because he, this whole thing about food.
I know. There's a series on I don't know if it's Amazon, I think it's Netflix right now, where this guy's on a mission to find the best curry in India. Oh, what's his name? I've been watching him. It's fantastic. It just makes me hungry. It just makes me starve, but it's really good. And there's something about the food of different countries that is, I used to think Southern food, Southern storytelling was the best in the world, but I've learned that I've led a very sheltered life, because just like the storytelling in Indian films and books, and now in the South American, storytellers and authors, we live in our own little world. And unless we really push ourselves out of our comfort zone a little bit, and that's what the Pulpwood Queens does. We're pushing people out to read things and watch films and do things that they have not experienced before, because the more we know about each other, I think the more understanding we're going to have of why people do what they do. And I'm still a firm believer in, if we want to change the world, we have to begin with the children. The children born must be the most important thing in the world, because they're the future. We can't do anything if our children are just being raised like Lord of the Flies. It's like, we have to, it takes a village. So that's what
I have to speak up for the young people in their 20s and early 30s. I'm very aware of they're into self-development, the kinds of book I write, and they're really trying to wake up.
When I went back to school, people say, oh, the millennials don't want to do anything. I didn't see that at all. What I'm talking about is that, when I went to school, the very first class I went to, the young woman that was next to me had a grand mal seizure right in front of me, and I was the only one that knew what to do. And she's going to college with this disability of having seizures. These are the kinds of things that kids are dealing with that I don't remember that much as a child, of people having so many. Another girl I was in the art class with had schizophrenia, and it wasn't until she started making what she was seeing in class that we really fully understand what she was going through every single day. She created this thing that wrote on her shoulder everywhere, and we were just like, oh my God, I'd be scared to death too, if I had something like that. But I agree that they were the hardest working kids in the world in school. So I don't think it's saying that they're lazy, and they're very earth conscious. And
yeah, there's sustainability and gender conscious, and they're doing things that make us uncomfortable maybe, but I think the young people, and my son is one of them, has their eye on a better world.
Being around young people keeps me young and informed.
Absolutely.
I think it's huge.
I love the little kiddos. I don't care what age they are. They're inspiring to me, but I do know that they're dealing with a lot of parents that aren't parenting, and that's disturbing. So, well, you guys, it's been a wonderful night. I know you've all had big days. Keep me posted on everything. I'm going to watch King of Hearts. I'm going to be watching for what you're doing in Bollywood and books, and what you're doing, Ruthie. I know you've got a million projects going right now. I can't even keep up with what I'm doing, but Before I go, anybody that's listening, next week we have our Tuesday night book club, and then I'll be on Adriana Trigiani's book club on the 8th, which is I think it's right before our book club meeting. And then on the 12th, she's going to kick off with me my Mama Cat's book club, my new children's book club. And I've got 3 authors in the queue already. We're going to do 1 book club meeting a month starting out and see how that goes. And everybody's really excited about it. And then Mandy is doing the Cool Cats Club, and she's going like gangbusters on that. We've got a beautiful new magazine out, and our membership is growing daily. I can't say, that life isn't good. It's just hard with this COVID. So pray for everybody. Oh, well, yes, the Mother Superior says, please, please pray. And,
Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Amen.
I loved Sidney Poitier when he was teaching those nuns. But watch the film Lovelace, and then we'll all get back together the next time. So have a wonderful night. Love to you all. And I'll have this uploaded tonight and probably up by tomorrow morning. Okay?
Thanks. Good night, y'all.
Good night.